Does this sound familiar? One minute you want to make art, the next you just don't feel like it. Maybe you had a bad day. Maybe you're going through tough things. You want to be a better artist, but your mental health just doesn't allow it. But what if you could change all that? Welcome to Art Mentor. My name is Sean, and how would you like to learn how to use art as part of your self-care routine so that you can both be a better artist and have even better mental health so that you can kill two birds with one stone without sacrificing either? Learn how starting right now. As we begin to learn how art can be a really positive force in your mental health and in your life, I just want to ask you this because we need to get down to some vital information that honestly nobody really talks about. So let me ask you this. How much is your mental health affecting you? Do you feel like it's an issue? Do you feel like there's just something wrong? Do you feel like there's something not right with you? Do you even feel like you might be even disordered? Well, one of the most unspoken truths, one of the worst things that we do is that we problematize it. So a key understanding that we want to go through is that mental health is not a problem. It is a normal factor of just being a human. It's part of your human condition of living, my friend. So when you examine it and when you treat it like it's going to be a problem, it will always be your problem. What I happen to notice from working with a lot of people in my time is that when you treat mental health like it is an issue for you, like it is an unsolvable, untreatable issue, is that it establishes an adversarial bond between yourself and your human condition. And that sets you up for a lot of failure, and it sets you up for just complete misery, doesn't it? But look, friend, you can't go through life like this because, just to be real with you, however you feel or whatever your diagnosis is, it's probably not going to go away. So rather than you fighting it tooth and nail, what if you accepted it? Most people's general dialogue is going to look like this. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Why was I born this way? Instead of, okay, I am this way. How do I do this? How do I succeed? How do I learn better? How do I still succeed? Instead of you coming from a place of lack and scarcity, what if the feelings that you're currently overwhelmed with, or what if the diagnosis that you currently have is actually your way of embracing yourself and loving yourself instead of resenting yourself? So what if art was a way that assisted with you in your mental health and how you accept and love yourself? Wouldn't that be great? Here are some prime examples of how you can do that moving forward starting today. Now, at the end of a really lousy day, have you ever rolled up to where you normally make art, if it's on your iPad or if it's on your computer or if it's just at your workstation or wherever you like to do it, and you said this phrase, you're like, I just don't feel like, I don't feel like I can do this right now, or I don't think I'm gonna make anything good. Have you ever come to that conclusion? Have you ever said those phrases to yourself? So how do you get past that, and how do we rise through that as artists? Because on one hand, art is something that's really meaningful to you, but on the other hand, you also kind of feel like you want to take care of yourself. So here's a suggestion for you. Whenever you're going to sit down to create anything, what if you just lowered your expectations? What if you started whatever you're currently doing, or even if you're in the middle of a piece right now, and you just came to a very manageable conclusion of whatever I'm going to do is going to be better than if I did absolutely nothing. Even if you struggled your way through some part or some duration of time, then guess what? It's probably inevitable that if you were in a fantastic space, you would have experienced the same exact thing. Now, why is this important? Because sometimes when we're in a really bad state, we seek to reinforce that bad state, and we seek to put ourselves down instead of bring ourselves up. So as an artist, what if you approached your artwork and just said, look, whatever I accomplish is fantastic. Whatever I do is going to move the needle. It's going to set the bar higher, and it's going to allow me, even if I don't make anything legendary, I will know this. At least I made art. At least I tried. At least I did something. Because at the end of that, you will have at least done something that felt meaningful to you after you felt like something was taken away from you or holding you back or brought you down. So it's a matter of, what are you doing right now to bring yourself up or to reinforce how you're currently feeling? How does that sound? So as you're currently feeling in this dark place and you feel like you can't get out of it, okay? Now you're in this place where you're feeling like you can't even do anything. And what might bring you out of that? So do you want to know what something you can do is that will totally bring your mind out of, I guarantee, whatever you're feeling? Here we go. Launch into something new. When your brain is hyper-focused on how you're currently feeling, what you can do is you can interrupt that with something that it's completely unassuming and unaware of. So is there something, I'm wondering right now, that you've been putting off learning? Is it maybe a new style? Is it maybe a tutorial that you've got queued up on YouTube? Are you like me, by the way? Do you have like hundreds of YouTube videos queued up? Maybe you got tutorials and stuff. Why don't you go ahead and watch them? Why don't you do a draw along? Why don't you pull up a draw along on YouTube and do that? Or maybe you've been putting off trying to learn how to do Blender or how to use a different art program. Or maybe it's how to draw hands or how to draw alligators or animals, whatever that is. If you launch into something new, here's what happens is that your brain is not going to operate with any resistance because it doesn't know any better. It's not aware of any resistances. Your brain is going to be softer and more malleable and therefore able to accept it. And what that's going to do is it's going to help you bring yourself out of how you're currently feeling, because your brain is going to be too focused on learning something new because it has to utilize all of its synapses, all of its neurons in order to take in and absorb new information. It's not going to have time to deal with how you're currently feeling. And what that's going to do is it's going to elevate you rather than to reduce you down to how you're currently feeling. So I'm kind of curious to hear from you. What's something new that you've been putting off learning, and how could you execute this? So have you ever thought that maybe you just need some time to deal with your current mental state? Have you ever said to yourself, or maybe you've just been advised, like, hey, you know what, you really need to take some time, you need to think yourself through this? Well, what if I told you that that is the worst advice that you could ever take and ever hear on this topic? Because just to be real with you, go ahead, take a day, take a week, take a month, heck, take a year. And I'm gonna promise you this, at the end of that, you're not gonna feel better. At the end of that, you're gonna feel even worse than when you first started. At the end of that time period, thinking about it is not going to change absolutely anything about that situation. All that's gonna do is it's going to further entrench you in that. The issue and the big flaw in this philosophy is just real simple, okay? This kind of predicates itself on the philosophy that time will produce positivity. But does that really happen? No, because let's be real, the way you're currently thinking right now, it's not positive, is it? And it becomes just a torturous cycle of you just repeating and rehashing and recycling everything that you're currently thinking, everything you're currently feeling. Oh God, that person. Oh God, the situation. Oh man, this made me so upset. I can't believe that this is happening. I can't believe that they did that. I'm totally stuck in here, okay? And then you take all that time, it's not going to fix anything. You taking more time is just going to prolong your pain rather than present a solution to your problem. So rather than you being stuck in the emotional quicksand that you're currently stuck and drowning in, my friend, here's what you can do instead. Think about how you can refocus your efforts into, rather than you thinking about things, into actually exploring it, into actually doing it, into actually handling it, rather than, I don't know, running away from it, rather than trying to just freeze yourself into it. And now to encapsulate this idea, I want to share with you this Buddhist philosophy that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And what that basically means is that, of course, barring horrendous circumstances, that most of the things that we experience in our life, it's going to be painful. Like, there's no doubt about it that you will experience some form of pain. But suffering is the state of pain that is sustained. And the only reason that you can actually stay in a sustained, painful state is if you give it permission to do that. The first time I heard this, that really blew my mind, and it really reshaped my thinking on it. And I've tried to apply this as much as possible with everything in my life that has happened to me, good and bad even. And now, how could art help you get through that? How can art be the way that you exit suffering and enter a state of healing? Consider that, my friend, as you learn this. Now, when you're feeling totally down in the dumps, or when you're going through a really challenging time, one of the things that you're probably going to feel like is that you just can't make time anymore, right? Have you ever felt like this? Have you ever felt like, man, I just don't have any sizable duration of time that I can sit down? I can't sit down for 8 hours a day, Sean. I got a life to live. I've got kids to feed. I've got a job I've got to do, or I'm just not feeling it today. I can't use my weekend for this kind of stuff, right? So have you ever said that and then gone ahead and then inevitably you've gone and done something else, okay? So what if you instead did this? What if you, hear me out, just dedicated a very short amount of time? So what I recommend to you is, what if you just worked in shorter sprints, okay? So one of the biggest fallacies that I think most artists operate under is that their efforts are worthless if they're not sitting down for hours. But one of the things I want to challenge you on is that if you actually looked at your efforts over a longer duration of time, like in weeks or months or years, that's what's more manageable and more sustainable for you, and it's going to make you feel better. So what I'm suggesting to you very simply is this. What if you just sat down and you said, look, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes. And at the end of 30 minutes, I'm going to allow myself to stop if I really can't go forward anymore. Now, hear me out, because I've been advising people to do this for quite a while now, and especially for the people that are in my Art Mentorship program, I've suggested the same exact thing. And I've personally executed on this for years. And you know what usually happens here? Take a guess. After 30 minutes, most people will tell me that they went on for another hour and a half, another 2 hours from that. But why is that? Because you start to bring yourself out of what you were thinking and into what you're thinking about now. Why also? Because it piques your curiosity, because it satisfies your interest, because it actually satisfies something that is deep and meaningful to you. Because when you start with a really simple expectation, a very short commitment, oftentimes what you inevitably want to do is you want to grow into that, and then you want to just sink yourself deeper into it. So you can also think of it like this. Have you ever sat down in a really positive mental state and experienced something very similar to that? If so, tell me about it. So if you're feeling down the dumps and you're starting to doubt yourself, why don't you just do shorter commitments and shorter sprints so that you can run a longer marathon and bring yourself into a better mental state and to a better art level? How's that sound? So fun fact, did you know that you can actually become addicted to negativity? Do you know anyone like this? Do you have anybody that you work with or a friend that's just always complaining and everything always sucks? Or maybe am I talking about you? Not trying to, by the way. I want to tell you something that not many people know, but I think that you should, friend, because if you're currently struggling with your mental health, this is something that you want to listen to. So what happens when you continuously reproduce negative thoughts is that negative thoughts produce stress hormones in your brain and in your body. And then your brain becomes actually, over time, chemically addicted. This is just like caffeine. This is just like a drug. Your brain can actually become just this junkie for negativity. You start to produce an unhealthy reward system for your brain and for your body. Essentially, the more negative health that you currently go through, the more that you experience it, the worse it gets. And kind of like a junkie too, you're always therefore going to seek a bigger and bigger negative mental health high from it. So rather than you feeling like you just can't do anything about it and you're just currently stuck, I want you to think about your mental health just like a state of matter, okay? So y'all probably learned this in science class back in the day, right? So you know you got your solids, your liquids, and your gases, right? So thinking in the same way, you can't exit your current state because you don't have enough energy to do it. So therefore, how do you do that? You need to think about this and just recognize first off that you're in an unresourceful state. What you're currently doing, how you're currently thinking, and how you're currently feeling is never going to promote you getting better. Now, the unfortunate side effect that this also has is it becomes a pattern. It becomes your go-to. Your brain has now gotten grooves in it to always go down that road. So now what we need to do is we need to think about, how do we exit that state? How do we produce energy to do other things? So we have to produce what's called a pattern interrupt. It's perfectly normal. It's perfectly okay. It's not shameful at all for you to have that initial human response, that knee-jerk anger, pain, or sadness, okay? Instead of it taking a whole day and ruining your whole day, now it ruins half the day. Then it ruins 6 hours of the day. Then it's gonna ruin a few hours a day, then an hour, then 30 minutes, and then 5 minutes. This will take some time for you to start to do, but just recognize this: staying stuck in that negative thought pattern is never going to help you exit it. It will only assist in one thing, and that's you feeling worse about it. Because just to be real, if you're feeling overwhelmed by your emotions, I guarantee you're not like, Sean, I'm just so overwhelmed. I'm just so happy. I'm so positive. Everything, my life is great. No, you're on the opposite end of that spectrum, right? Everything sucks. This is terrible. I'm never going to get out of this. That's not going to help you. And if you're kind of feeling that way, it might be because you've conditioned your brain to want more negativity. Have you ever thought about that? Now, as you pull up that artwork that you're currently making, or you're opening up that file that you've been working on for a while, or if you've got a brand new idea that you want to sink yourself into, but you're not feeling so great, you're emotionally not at the highest version of yourself, you might start to say this, man, I don't feel like doing this. This is causing me greater stress. This is causing me greater emotional turmoil. And now because of that, you feel like you don't want to put yourself through further stress, through further challenge. Does this sound like you, by the way? So what can you do instead? What if you, instead of launching into something that's just feeling like you have intense resistance, or you have to do something that's crazy hard, you know that that's going to be just not where you should be right now? How about this? What if you launch into your comfort zone art? What if you launch into just doing things that you really enjoy? What if you, because tell me about it down below, like what is your comfort zone art? What if you just launched into doing a certain style, doing certain characters, doing fan art, doing your OCs, like doing something that you are already very familiar with? And the reason why I would suggest that to you, friend, and how that's going to help with your mental health and your overall self-care, is that when you're down in the dumps, man, everything just kind of feels unknown, doesn't it? And you kind of feel lost sometimes. So how do you bring yourself back to a better state so that you can take care of life and take care of yourself better? Is that you can just go with what is familiar. When you are drawing, when you're painting, when you're sculpting, when you're doing whatever type of art that you love to do, right? And it's familiar to you, you don't have as much resistance. You don't have as many barriers to entering that or to staying on that task, because it's something that you're already hyper aware of. So rather than you shying away from something that you know is going to be very difficult, why don't you just go into something that you really enjoy? Launching into something that you love is going to make you love yourself and love your process so much better. Now, how would you like to know the most guaranteed way to just snap yourself out of your current mood, of your current state, and how you're currently feeling? As soon as you start to feel any type of undesirable way, I bet you're probably going to want to go and sit down. You're going to want to go lay down. Maybe you get into bed. Maybe you take a nap. Maybe you're just going to just melt into that sofa, right? Maybe you're just also going to want to be inside. Maybe you're going to want to be in a dark place even, right? Well, what if I told you that that's actually the worst thing for you to do for yourself? What is that is actually going to push your negative mental health to a darker, lower place than you currently are in. So what are you gonna do? Overwhelm those waves of anxiety and depression and stress with some physical activity, with some endorphins. Get your blood pumping, get your veins going. And what should you do, friend? As much as possible, if you can do this, get outside, go for a walk, go for a jog, go for a hike. Just doing some level of physical activity has been shown to radically increase your mood and snap you out of how you're currently feeling. So what else could you? You can do some exercises, maybe do some push-ups, you can do some squats, do some jumping jacks, you can jump some rope for a while. Hey, what else could you do? What if you went onto YouTube and you looked up like 10 to 15 minute workouts and you get through that? Listen, you get your blood pumping, you feel all that energy coursing through your veins at the end of it. Maybe you got a little bit of a sweat going here, you're breathing a little heavy, because it is impossible for you to really channel and think all of those things that you're currently thinking right now, to feel like you're stuck in your current circumstances while your body is also being pushed to some kind of limit. So if you can incorporate some type of rigorous physical activity into your self-care routine, and then immediately sit down and you start to channel it into your artwork too, you're going to feel more focused. You're going to feel like everything's okay, because you've now swapped out the chemicals in your brain from being stress hormones into being happy hormones. By doing this, y'all are going to blast away all those negative thoughts by sweating them out. And you got some great long-term benefits too. You're going to be able to combat really bad potential physical issues that could be chronic ones too down the line too. That's a big win-win-win, isn't it? You have better art, you have better physical health, and then you have long-term better health. Isn't that amazing? Try it out. Or if you already do this, what do you like to do? Now, as another suggestion for you, in order to reach your highest art level and to be the best version of yourself and to accomplish everything you want in the most human way possible, I've got a great suggestion for you. But before we move forward, if you're enjoying this, if you could please hit that like and subscribe button, because I'm all about supporting you as a whole-rounded artist, person, and product. And if you're enjoying this and you know somebody that needs to hear this, please share it with them too. And now my next tip involves around this. So when you're currently feeling overwhelmed, I'm going to give you a strategy that I learned actually while watching X-Men. So y'all know Cyclops, aka Scott Summers, okay? So having concerns with mental health, and especially feeling with stress and anxiety, just feeling overwhelmed, or if your current circumstances are just completely wiping the floor with you, I think about this. If you know about Cyclops, he cannot open up his eyes because he'll just like shoot lasers and stuff everywhere. So Professor X made that little visor that when he presses the button, it focuses it so it only comes out when he wants, okay? So similarly, here's another way for you to divert your attention in a positive way, not away from how you feel, but towards how you feel in a positive outlet, friend. Why don't you do some studies? Look, everybody's got some stuff that they want to do, that they would like to do, stuff that they've been putting off. So here are two different categories I can put this into. Is first off, like, what do you enjoy doing, okay? What are some things that when you're not feeling well, that you can just completely engross yourself into, that you are just gonna be able to explore how you're feeling while also putting that energy into a really positive outlet? Okay, so do you like to do architecture? Do you like to do landscapes? Do you like to do characters? Do you like to do faces? Do you want to draw pretty girls? Like, there's no hate on this one. Like, whatever you like to do, just throw yourself into it. You need a way to channel all that you're currently feeling right now into a more advantageous look. Another way you can do this is, okay, what do I need to do? You maybe need to do some hand studies. Do you want to do some lighting studies? Do you want to do some compositional studies? Do you want to do some master studies? So by you diverting your attention away from how you're currently feeling, away from the negativity that you're currently overwhelmed with, and you're putting all of that instead into actually learning something, your mind switches from being stuck in how it currently is and what you're currently going through, and it refocuses it. And then at the end of this, you can look back on those studies, and regardless of how you started at the beginning of this process, you're then going to feel more accomplished, and you're going to have something that you can look at and you can say, okay, look, even if this isn't great, at least I did it. Even though I can't get past that circumstance or that feeling right now, at least I was able to feel accomplished with this. At least I feel fulfilled now with that, because what was going on before did not fulfill me. So if life isn't filling your cup, see how art could potentially help you fill your cup. And I guarantee you this, while you're doing that, you're going to be thinking about and you're actually going to be handling everything that you're feeling. How's that work for you? What kind of things do you like to study? Now, would you be surprised if I told you that we're actually conditioned and taught how to handle stress and anxiety very, very poorly? And this kind of stems from the fact that we're not taught how to actually experience our emotions. And that, by the way, is why art is such a big, meaningful activity. What art forces you to do through your participation in it is it forces you to explore your interiority, into your humanness. And there's a lot of people that don't like art, actually, not because it's hard or not because it takes time, but because they're actually really uncomfortable by doing that. And I can relate this back to how you first learned how to handle your emotions from childhood. So just think about it like this, like, how do kids handle emotions? Okay, well, when they feel upset, what do? Throw temper tantrums, right? They scream, they cry, they throw things, they lay down in Costco. But at some point in your life, you were conditioned to be civilized. You were taught, no, that's not right. No, you're not supposed to do that. No, don't feel that way. No, don't think that way. No, don't act that way. So from doing this, what this actually does is it doesn't teach us expression, it teaches us repression. And the really bad side effect of this is that it blocks you from actually learning how to experience things, so that by the time you're adult, most adults develop terrible coping habits. Most adults don't know how to handle how they currently feel. Most adults will not actually even know how to feel feelings. Do you know anybody like that? So what I'm going to suggest for you to do is to reacquaint yourself by doing this practice, which is actually totally immersing yourself into that feeling, into how you're currently going through. Because most people are going to handle their emotions almost like they have a water balloon with a tiny pinprick in it. And what's going to happen as they hold that water balloon is that water is therefore just going to drip out, drip, 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 drip. Well, what if instead of that, you just exploded it right in your hands and you just let it all out and you gave yourself this for a certain time frame? Now, I'm suggesting this in a very healthy way, by the way. Please don't have a freak out in Costco and lay out on the ground. That's going to make things worse, okay? But here's what you can do. Give yourself a time frame for you to feel the way that you do, okay? Maybe you just need 5 minutes and you just have what I call an eruption of emotion. And I'm going to give you my personal take on this as I recently experienced this, okay? I recently had to put down my cat, and it's a really sad experience. It's slightly traumatic when you have to go through that with the vet. I was there with him in the moment. I kind of kept my stiff upper lip while I was in there. And then if you've ever had to go through this experience, you know the pain and the sorrow of having to walk out with an empty animal carrier. And so I walked out, said my goodbyes. I got in my car and I just completely emotionally let loose. I'm talking screaming, crying, apologizing. I mean, it was like ugly crying times 10. And the whole time though, I just let that all out. And I thought in that moment, like, I really need to feel this. I can't hold this in. And I knew that I had to do that because I then had to drive home right after this and be there for my family, be there for my 2 small children that had never even experienced death before, didn't even understand the concept of it because they're young. Had to be there for my wife too, who along with me have had him for 14 years since he was a kitten. So what I want to encourage you is this: instead of you repressing those feelings, give yourself some type of a time frame for you to just really feel it, like completely immersing yourself into that feeling, completely letting yourself just go down in there. So what can you do? Maybe you can lock yourself in the closet while no one's around at home and just scream. Maybe you can just punch a punching bag. Maybe you can punch some pillows. Maybe you line up some bottles outside and you just throw baseballs at it, okay? Do this in a safe and controlled environment. We want to do this in a really healthy way because most of you will feel terrible, but you're not going to allow yourself to feel it, or worse, you're just going to allow it to trickle out. But the worst effect of that is that it's going to be a poisonous effect to you, where it's going to be corrosive to your mood. It's not going to help you because you never let yourself experience it, and therefore it's going to fester. It's going to be like allowing cancer cells to grow a little bit at a time. And that's literally what negativity is. It is cancerous to your mental health. And what I'm trying to encourage you to do is, through this video and through your artwork, is actually experience it, letting it out in a positive way, and allowing your artwork to continue to help you grow and explore those feelings rather than repressing them or numbing yourself to them. Which also brings me to that point, which is that we're also taught to not feel things all the time too. And then this is where you develop negative coping habits. You start to develop the ability to, you're gonna run to video games, you're gonna run to food, you're gonna run to media, you're gonna watch 3.5 hours of TikTok. And at the end of that, do you feel any better? Heck no, you don't. All you did, even if you laughed at some funny videos or you played a great game, you didn't heal yourself. You just bandaged it. You just masked it. And then guess what? It comes back full force. It just hits you when you least expect it. Or then your pain is going to cause someone else in your life to hurt. And just think about this, y'all. If you don't heal yourself, you're going to make the other people in your life that you care about bleed instead. You ever considered that? Because you might be having some collateral damage in your life from not taking care of this and numbing yourself to it, friend. So experience it. It's worth it. Now, another great thing that you can do at this point is you can combine what I've suggested to you before. So let's say that you have a project that you know you need to work on. Maybe it's for a client, maybe it's for your job, or maybe it's just something that you really were interested in that you're no longer interested in just because of the fact that you don't actually want to do it, but it's actually just because you're feeling resistance to it. So what if you layered that with, okay, I'm gonna do my comfort zone art, and I'm gonna do that comfort zone art for just like 30 minutes, and then I'm gonna launch into that other more important project, or the project that I have to do right now. How does that sound? Or what if you launch into that project that you're really interested in and you just had lowered expectations? And what if you did that as well for like 30 minutes? Here's another thing too. Is there some part of your artwork that you know is just easier. Like for me personally, like if I'm having a really tired day, one of the things that I'll do is I'll kind of launch into my artwork, I'll pull it up and I'll just be like, what am I really good at? And what doesn't take a whole lot out of me? And I'll be like, okay, look, I like to draw hair. Let me start on there. Or like, I don't mind doing eyes today. I'll do that. Or like, hey, I'll do clothes. And what that will kind of do for you, friend, is this. You'll notice yourself actually start to launch into doing other things around that easy, comfy art thing. And therefore, it will compel you to then ease yourself into doing harder things. And again, you brought yourself into this in a lowered state and you're bringing yourself out of it into a higher state. And you did that through a really positive self-care routine where you started with loving yourself and understanding your current state and then elevating it as you went. How does that sound? Do you think you could do that too? Or how do you think that you can employ this technique? Can I tell you one more thing that's going to be completely inevitable? You're going to have bad moments in life. You're going to have trials and tribulations. You're going to have these seasons of your life that are going to just totally suck. And you're going to be faced with challenges. My friend, the way that you're going to get out of that is by understanding this, that we operate as humans just like nature does. We have seasons. We have seasons of growth. We have seasons of decay. We have seasons of new developments. We have seasons where there is fading happening too. And the way that you want to pull yourself out of it, my friend, when you're in a state of decay, when you're in a state of you're not going anywhere fast, is you need to understand that this is part of life. This is what's going to happen to you. And if you're currently in this state right now where you're just like, man, I'm in this season where everything totally sucks. My whole art life has completely gone to crap. And I don't know what to do about it. I made a whole video for you right here so you can learn and get back on track. It's going to help you big time. Thanks so much. And if this helped you, please share it with somebody that you know. See you next time.